Hi guys, Asmo here, and what you've just seen was the stagger strategy, the stagger cheese, whatever you want to call it, to kill Lilith with Rogue. It's one of the more popular ways, if not the most popular way of killing Lilith right now on the Rogue, and I managed to pull it off without the unique gloves, which have a very small drop rate. It's very hard to get these gloves. I haven't had the luck, so I had to find different ways of staggering her, and I'm gonna explain exactly that strategy as well as the legitimate strategy for killing Lilith. I'm gonna give you a lot of tips because I have done the fight a lot of times on a different build with a rapid fire rogue, and I've learned a lot in this fight. I basically downloaded phase 1. I got the phase 2 halfway through basically in terms of what I practiced, and the hardest part by far is the last half HP of the Lilith in the second phase, but I'm gonna give you as many tips as I can, everything that I learned. But first I'm gonna go over the staggering strategy and what I did, how I geared my character in order to be able to do this without the unique gloves, so that you can do this as well, even if you are just like me, unlucky and cannot find the gloves and cannot have these this massive boost to the stagger that they provide. So first let's go over the strategy. So the basic strategy is that we are using as much CC as we can to stagger her. We're using twisting blades with bursting venoms to do a lot of damage, and bursting venoms, like I've seen a lot of people talk about it as if it's some kind of a bug. It's simply a mechanic. Like if people just don't, I guess these are like people who never played Rogue or something. There is an aspect that allows you to on a lucky crit spawn like a pool of poison, and when you're standing in that pool of poison, your poison imbuement has no limit to the charge and refreshes the cooldown, which basically means as long as you imbued your attack with poison, every attack that you perform that is a core skill is going to be imbued with poison, and you can just spam poison imbued attacks over and over and over as long as you have this pool under you. And this is not a bug, this is just simply how the aspect works. The only thing in this strategy that's a bug, it's the stagger mechanic. When you do this in phase 2, before she spawns any of the blood boils, before she spawns the puddles, she is actually like not gonna do certain mechanics, right? Because she's gonna be, especially when you do a lot of damage, she's gonna be queued into like destroying the arena, and therefore she's not gonna have time to spawn any more puddles, and you're gonna have much easier time dodging everything, right? Because if you stagger her just slightly later, and I have done this like many times, where I stagger her like half a second too late and she spawns all 4 puddles, and maybe 2 of them get destroyed by stagger. Sometimes none of them get destroyed by stagger because she kind of spawns them like it's already queued before you staggered her. So in that situation, you're gonna still have to dodge a lot of mechanics. It's gonna be much more difficult, but this strategy, if you are able to stagger her before she spawns the blood boils, before she spawns the poison / shadow damage, I think they are pools, then it's gonna be 1,000 times easier. Like, it's not even the same fight, it just trivializes the fight and makes it so much easier. But you also of course have to get through the phase 1, and for example, I was not able to skip phase 1 completely. I still had to do the 3 demons phase, and there are a lot of, this fight is full of bugs, but I'm gonna explain about the bugs as well. So first let's talk about the let's talk about the character setup. So first of all, let's talk about the gear. The gear is going to be the Mangler's aspect. Mangler's aspect is giving you a chance to daze the enemy when you're dealing direct damage to a vulnerable enemy. Ideally, you want this at 45%. The best one I found was 41%. So this is the Mangler's aspect. And then for the helmet, you definitely want crowd control duration. You want ranks of poison imbuement, and then you also want cooldown reduction. Cooldown reduction is actually pretty important for this strategy because you want to be able to spam poison trap as much as possible. There is some other tech that I actually am using in order to use poison trap more often, but if you can use shadow step and poison trap more often, it's going to allow you to stagger her quicker, and it's actually pretty important. So cooldown reduction, which I do not have on this helmet, is pretty important. Other than that, I just went full glass cannon for this attempt, and I dropped a lot of defensive aspects, a lot of defensive stats, which makes me much more squishy, so I have to rely a little bit on potions in the beginning just against her auto attacks, but it was definitely worth it for the strategy that I was doing. So other than that, for offensive stats, you can also have dexterity, and also you can have a basic skill attack speed, which is also useful. Then we've got on the chest the exploiters. So the exploiters, this is another slot where I dropped a defensive aspect. It simply gives me 20% increased crowd control duration. So crowd control duration basically increases the amount of stagger that your crowd control is going to inflict. And then for the attributes, we have marksman skill damage, we have imbued skill damage, we have dexterity and strength, just basically as many offensive stats as I could fit in this. Then we have the gloves, which again, this is the slot where people are using the unique gloves, and I'm gonna also link a build in the description from, I think, Lucky Luciano, who I think he and like his community first were sharing this build in this form. At least I copied a lot of that, and I made like very small adjustments that I'm gonna explain to you and talk about that I had to do because I didn't have the gloves. So the gloves are pretty important for the build. It's basically what the build relies on, but I didn't have the gloves, so I had to improvise. So for the gloves, I am using +4 to twisting blades. I am using attack speed and lucky hit chance just to proc as much lucky hits. And then I got also lucky hit chance to slow. So this is something that is present on the unique gloves, but the unique gloves also have lucky hit chance to daze. And that is what we are really missing. However, we are compensating a little bit with the lucky hit, and also we have an extra aspect chance, extra aspect on this. So we have the bursting venoms on the gloves. Then on the pants, we have just as many offensive stats as I could. So like dexterity, intelligence, all stats, basically, because intelligence gives me crit, and then all stats gives me dex and int. And then some damage reduction, because why not? And then we have imprinted Umbrus aspect. This is basically probably better to be fit, like equipped with disobedience. Disobedience would probably make you tankier in this fight, but I just didn't want to swap the aspects around. Doesn't really matter, but like you need one defensive aspects in here. It could be disobedience, it could be might, it could be Umbrus. Then we have the boots, which are penitent greaves. I had a pretty good roll penitent greaves, so I use them. They give you the extra chill, which adds to the stagger, and basically that's the whole reason, right? We are losing evades, so you have to be pretty careful. Like if you don't kill phase 1 before she does any abilities, then you're gonna have to dodge some stuff. You're gonna have to dodge waves. I am very comfortable with dodging the waves in the phase 1, so I had no issues. But I'm missing a bunch of movement speed that I would normally have, so you have to be careful for that because you don't have the extra evades. Then we have the corruption aspect, which is the imbuement skills have increased potency against vulnerable enemies. So this is 80% more damage against vulnerable enemies with the poison. This is massive. Another thing you could put on this is the retribution, which gives you 40% increased damage to stunned enemies, which would be 80% here. But I think the corruption is better because it is not only applicable when the enemy is stunned, so it doesn't only work on a Lilith that is staggered, but also it works on the blood boils and the demons and so on, and also on Lilith when she's not staggered. So I think this placement is better. And then basically we have critical strike damage with imbued skills, dex, and vulnerable damage, so like all the stats that you really want on a crossbow. And then we have the amulet. So on the amulet we have the accelerating roll. I had a couple of amulets. One has some extra movement speed and the imbued skills ranks, and one has just more pure damage and also the energy energy cost reduction, which is pretty important for spamming your twisting blades. So I found this amulet with imbuement skill damage, crowd control duration, which is very important. The main reason why I'm wearing is actually the crowd control duration because of the stagger requirements. And then I managed to get +3 ranks to weapon mastery, which is pretty good when you're using like 2 weapons, like a sword and a dagger, like I'm using. So that is pretty useful as well. And then we've got the rings. One has the blade dancer for the twisting blades tech. We have resource generation, vulnerable damage, critical strike damage, and critical strike chance. And then one tip I can give you that like nobody really talks about: the resistances on the rings are actually very, very important, especially if you want to do the fight the legitimate way. You want to get shadow and poison resist on these, right? Ideally, like I think just poison or just shadow res should probably be enough. I have on one of them the poison resistance, and I have multiple like rings with like also poison res as well, because the second phase is it is very important for you to stand on the puddles. I'm going to explain this later as well, and they're going to be doing a lot of poison damage to you, and I think a lot of shadow damage from what I know. So you need like generic damage reduction, and you need like at least some decent poison resistance in order to not fall over to the damage over time component of that. So that is very, very helpful. So when you're looking for rings, you don't only look for just the modifiers on the ring, also look for the resistances and make sure that they have poison resistance as well when you're gearing up for Lilith. Other than that, you're looking for crit chance, vulnerable damage, crit damage. For twisting blades, you're also looking for resource generation. So normally you would have like on boots, you would have energy cost reduction. On the amulet, you would have energy cost reduction. And on the amulet, you're looking for resource generation as well if you can. And then another one I have here with vulnerable damage, crit chance, and lucky hit chance, as well as life. For a full glass cannon setup, this life could be just crit damage, or it could be resource generation as well. And then we have this imprinted with smiting. So smiting is a very, very good aspect for the Lilith fight, because it gives you a 20% increased critical strike chance against injured enemies. So I think this is enemies below 35% HP, and the last half HP of the second phase of Lilith is by far the hardest part of the fight. So if you can have this, like this execute damage in quotes, is pretty important for this. And also we get 40% increased crowd control duration, which adds to the stagger, and stagger is very important. Whether you're doing, by the way, whether you're doing the stagger strat or not, you want to stagger her, because every time you stagger her, you remove 2 of the blood puddles in the phase 2, which is very, very, very important. And then we are using just a regular one-hander sword with imprinted retribution, like I showed already, with all stats dex, vulnerable damage, critical strike damage, just standard stuff. And then we have Ashara's Kenjar, which not only gives you the huge amount of attack speed, which is very, very nice, but also gives you an extra lucky hit chance, which is very important. I have tried using condemnation for this strategy because I have very nice 40% condemnation, but it ended up doing less damage. You don't actually want to spam your puncture that much, like in between twisting blades. You either don't care about the damage you're doing, or you're spamming twisting blades. So condemnation wasn't working in practice very well. That's why I have this setup here. And that's when it comes to the items. For the gems, you can see we just have life, armor, and then we have critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies. Very standard stuff. For nightmare dungeons, normally you don't run the maximum life, instead you run damage reduction while crowd controlled, but this is important for Lilith 5, you're not gonna get crowd controlled, so you run just extra life. For specialization, we're of course running the combo points, because really I think inner sight is bugged right now as well. We're not using an ultimate ability, and it's just adding us more damage. And then when we look at the skill tree, this is going to be where I made a couple of changes to the build. I'm going to explain first what is normally in the build. So the puncture, that's normally here. We got fundamental puncture. What puncture does, first of all, it's very, very quick, so builds up combo points very quickly. it's guaranteed vulnerable, so we don't have to we don't have to have a blast trapper aspect, we don't have to have anything else. We just take care of vulnerable with this, but also it slows enemies, right? So this allows you to slow enemies, and that will also add additional like critical strikes with this skill always slow, so that allows you to add extra stagger just by spamming this. Then we have twisting blades. Enemies are dazed while impaled, so that's extra source of stagger as well. Then we have the siphoning strikes. You can get away with 2 points in this probably. I had to put 3 points in this because I'm very squishy, because I didn't have disobedience or might aspect. Then we have the shadow step, which gives you additional stun, so that's even more stagger. You use this on cooldown basically on Lilith to stagger her even more. Also, it's useful for like getting around waves and jumping back to like kill blood boils and stuff like that in phase 1. Then we have weapon mastery, just extra damage multipliers. So we have damage to healthy enemies and also increased damage. 1 rank in dash. You can have more ranks in dash if you want for the cooldown, but if you use it wisely, then you don't need more than 1. And then we have the poison trap. Poison trap also, we are using the subverting poison trap. And I was thinking about the countering poison trap, but really you care about the damage. And if you don't, like, at least if you're playing in, I don't think you would do this in hardcore, but if you're playing in softcore at least, if you don't like for some reason spawn the poison pools and you don't have the bursting venoms proccing, you can still kill her, but like you wouldn't rely on this. Like you would just go again and try again, right? And like if you had really bad luck, you would just go again. So that's why this is really not necessary. It's better to just increase the damage you're dealing. And then we have the exploit as well as malice, just more damage, very standard. Then we have as many ranks in poison imbuement as possible. You can have more ranks in poison imbuement. I have this other amulet. Like ideally, this amulet instead of imbuement skill damage would have ranks to poison imbuement. And that would be the perfect setup. I have tried like this amulet instead. It's lacking other damage sources, and it's lacking the crowd control duration, but both were dealing very similar damage, so that was not a big deal. But you want ideally like 12 ranks into poison imbuement and then a blended poison imbuement because we have a lot of crit chance. Then we also want deadly venom. Precision imbuement, I only have 2 out of 3 points in here because I had to spend points on other stuff, because staggering here was actually more important than the damage. I didn't care that much about the damage because honestly I wasn't I barely, couple of times almost staggered her entire phase 1, but it requires specific timing that I'm gonna show in a moment that I wasn't able to execute like 100%, and I was missing a little bit of damage. So instead I focused on just like 100% staggering the phase 2. That was the most important thing. So I dropped some damage instead, like in favor of getting more crowd control. And then we also running frigid finesse. This gives you, people are saying this gives you 45% increased damage because Lilith is chilled and frozen. I'm not sure if this actually works like that. It might be giving you 45% because she is both like chilled and frozen, but I'm not sure if this works as a 45% or 30% multiplier. Either way, it's really good and important, and you should pick it, because when bosses are staggered, they're basically affected by all crowd controls. And then we have the innervation for energy gain on lucky hit. Then we have increased a lucky hit chance when we deal non-physical damage, which we're dealing with the poison. And then also every 100% and every 100 energy we spend grants me 15% increased lucky hit chance. The lucky hit chance is super important. And then we've got more crit when the poison trap or death trap activates against vulnerable enemies and crowd controlled enemies. So basically at all times when the trap activates, we have the extra crit. And here is the big thing that's going to help you a lot for staggering the boss. Even in phase 1, I was sometimes running the close quarters combat. This is going to give you more damage, huge amount of damage in fact. So you can run this in phase 1 and then you can swap in phase 2. When she's loading into phase 2, you can swap to exposure really quickly. This is gonna give you direct damage is gonna give you a chance to reduce the cooldowns of your traps, which means you're gonna be able to like spam this like fourth, you're gonna be able to drop like fourth poison trap or maybe even fifth poison trap on top of her, which is gonna give you the huge amount of stagger. And then also it's going to allow you to drop a cluster of exploding stun grenades that also stun enemies. So that's extra stagger, right? So this is giving you extra stagger and extra chance for the poison trap. And this was basically the difference that made it so that I was able to stagger her in the phase 2 before she was able to do anything, right? So that whole setup. Another change I've made was to the Paragon tree. This is a pretty important point that wasn't included in the Lucky Luciano's Paragon board, which I'm gonna link in the description, but this is what really saved me. It is the trap skill cooldown reduction and also the reduction of the arm time of the trap skills. This is massive. This is the difference between staggering her before she pops the blood balls in the phase 2 or after. This is what would make the biggest difference. So super important point. So the spring loaded rare node, insanely important, right? This is making it so that we have basically more traps when she comes out, and they arm faster, which means they're gonna trigger faster, which means she's not gonna like jump out of them, right? And they're gonna trigger faster, so it's gonna be shorter time from when you drop to when it actually activates and staggers her. So that is a massive change. Very important diversion that I made from the original build. And I think I removed the I think not cheap shot, but in this board, yeah, I removed the exploit weakness for it, right? So I literally removed the exploit weakness, which is really good node, right? It gives you a lot of damage, but the damage doesn't matter if you cannot stagger her in the phase 2 before she does the mechanics, right? Which is like how we're killing her so much easier. So I literally removed the exploit weakness because this had like the most amount of points, huge amount of points. I picked up some damage instead of it, right? I grabbed some other damage on the board for it. Like I grabbed, I think, this node as well, the oppress, which is 30% damage to crowd control enemies, another 15% damage to crowd control enemies. So huge amount of damage when she's staggered. So that basically compensated for the damage loss, but we are also getting the trap cooldown reduction. And also by being able to spam more traps during the fight, we are able to do more damage as well. So this was the big difference. Other than that, you can see the Paragon tree in the description. And let me now go over the fight itself and explain first the stagger strat, and then I'm gonna show you actually just legitimate attempts with rapid fire, where I'm gonna share with you other tips for the fight as well. Okay, so first let's go over the strategy with staggering. So I'm using the same build I just described. Elixir that I'm using is the lucky hit chance elixir, which as far as I know, you cannot craft it, and you basically just get it by doing hell tides. So save those for this strategy. This is the best elixir for sure. Another elixir that you could use as an alternative would be the Heady Assault elixir, which is the 20% attack speed. That's a really good elixir. I definitely recommend it for like every other rogue build. But for this specific strategy, the lucky hit chance is a little bit better. So the first thing I do is I go to the middle, I plant a trap. The moment she like pushes me away, I shadow step to her, and we immediately build up a bunch of stagger. The next thing I do is I spam puncture. Basically, the way I do this, the way I do damage to her is I hold down the puncture and then I just tap the twisting blades, and I keep fairly high on energy because I want to be ready for the burst. So at first I'm just building stagger. When I get roughly to half of the stagger, so you can see my trap cooldown comes back very quickly because of the passive, but normally like when your shadow step cooldown and trap cooldown are coming back up, this is where I start doing serious damage, maybe a little bit earlier depending on how much damage you have. Basically the timing that you're looking for is you see this health bar here. She kind of has like two health bars, right? One is the poisoned one and one is the full, right? The full and the poisoned. So her current health is actually the on the right side. So even the poisoned life, she's gonna lose it, but she still has it. So it still counts as her life that she has. You wanna make sure that you stagger her ideally where her actual life is around here. So like around 70%, 66%, somewhere in this area. This is where she's gonna jump up and summon the 2 demons. If you wanna skip all of those phases with all of the demons, you need to make sure that from here, when you stagger her, you're basically gonna remove her entire bar, including the poisoned one. You cannot have like the poisoned health still ticking. That's still gonna make it so that you still have to fight some demons and stuff and do some other phases, which was the case for me. But if you have more damage, you could completely skip the phase 1. I wasn't able to do it, but at this point I just downloaded the phase 1, so it's like super easy at this point. So we're starting to do real damage. I'm also very squishy, so I have to use my potions. I have to earlier on I had to like slightly dodge, but now I'm just blasting and relying on potions and healing myself from the passive that heals when you're hitting a nearby enemy. And I'm just the way I'm spamming damage is basically by standing in the pool. I'm holding down the puncture and I'm just spamming twisting blades as long as I have the energy. When my energy runs out, I just don't care about spamming 2-3 combo points. The combo points are here just as a little bonus. You are not necessarily relying on getting 3 combo points. That's why we're not running the expectant aspect. We're not running condemnation or anything like that. We just have like a little bit of extra damage, and we're also keeping up the vulnerable by using puncture. So I staggered her here. This was a little bit too early. Ideally, I would stagger her in like 1 or 2 seconds. If I staggered her 1 or 2 seconds later, that would be ideal. One issue that you're gonna run into a lot, and you're just gonna have to try a bunch of times, is that she has a tendency around this time, at least for me, or maybe I just got really unlucky, to do the wide wave, right? And the wide wave, you have to dodge, you have to like walk behind her, which stops you from doing damage, and you often like will stagger her at the same time as she's doing the wide wave. So that might be one issue that you run into. Just do more tries and eventually you're gonna get it so that she doesn't do the wide wave and you have like full uptime and you can do maximum damage. So you can see we're doing massive amount of damage, even though I'm still like missing some damage from passives. And we didn't get her whole life bar didn't disappear. We got her to about here, and this was all poisoned, but as she flies up, she basically removes the poison, or at least a portion of it, right? So she heals a little bit when she goes up. We've got the demons. With the 3 demons, you have multiple strategies. You can either go for killing one at a time, as you would do with a normal build. In here, I went a little bit risky. I had a lot of cooldowns, so I managed to just do a lot of damage and kill 2 of them and keep 1 of them up, which was ideal for me. We've got the triangle pattern. I'm gonna go over the pattern in the next attempt that I'm gonna show that is like a legitimate attempt. So I'm gonna explain how to dodge all of this, but we simply go to a safe zone and then go back to kill the blood boils. Go again to the safe spot, and then she's gonna phase the moment that the last demon dies. It doesn't matter about the blood boils can still be alive. Whenever the last demon dies, that's where she's gonna transition to the next phase. So you still might have blood boils. In another attempt, I had like blood boils, I had like waves going on. You could see this earlier in the video. So you wanna make sure that even when the blood boils are here, if you have the trap cooldown, and you know that you're gonna be able to kill them, you might wanna do something like drop a trap in here, and then shadow step to the blood bowls, finish them, and then go back and drop another trap. The shadow step cooldown is gonna come back, but you're gonna be able to have like an extra trap here, which is very, very important. The more traps you can stack, the better your chance at staggering her before she gets to spawn any of the blood bowls. I'm checking if I have the right passes, because earlier on I was actually swapping them and using the close quarters combat for the phase 1. Now we're dropping this. Also, you can pre-imbue, right? So you can imbue and then wait for the cooldown to come back up, and then when you're going to be hitting him, you're going to basically have an extra imbue charge, because one is going to be spent on the shadow step, one is going to be spent on the twisting blades, and then you're going to have cooldown come right back up. So we're spamming the traps, and we're spamming the puncture as well. I want to make sure that the moment she is targetable, I hit her with a puncture, because every like split second is important in this. Like, this is not that easy to pull off. Like, it might look like, oh, you just stagger her and just you don't have to do anything, it's so simple. Like, you do have to attempt this a bunch of times, because it's not that easy to stagger her before she does any of these abilities, right? Before she basically spawns the pools, which is what we're trying to aim for, because otherwise we're gonna have to have like some pools to deal with, which is a massive difference in how easy the fight is. So everything is detonating. I'm gonna shadow step to her. I already did basically hit her with Twisting Blades, so I spent my imbue that way. Then I Shadow Step, and then I'm gonna have imbue coming back up, so I maximize my damage and I maximize my chances at getting the lucky hit procs, and I also maximize my chances at spawning the bursting venoms proc, right? We get another trap, and because of the quicker activation, I actually managed to stagger her before she does, like you can see the red outline, she would summon the blood boils, the 4 blood boils right now, but we managed to stagger her, and that's GG basically. This is, now there's only like one tricky part that I'm gonna explain in a moment, but because we get her health solo, now, instead of doing other attacks, she's gonna have queued animations for destroying the arena, and while she's destroying the arena, we're gonna further stagger her and further deal more damage, so that we just keep pushing her toward the next destruction of the arena, You can see I'm just dropping traps because I know she's gonna come in here. When she destroys the arena, she's completely like targetable here, you can fight her. So I'm trying to do damage, going in the middle, she's gonna land in here, so I know she's gonna go back to the middle, and I'm gonna stagger her, and then we're gonna be able to imbue again, drop a trap to deal even more damage, and just keep pumping and doing as much damage as possible. We got her low enough so that she's gonna destroy the right side now. It's always the right side from my experience, from all the attempts that I've did. So the right side first, she destroys that, we just walk out of there, you have lots of time, it's very, very easy. It's basically like, compared to the fight without skipping these mechanics, it's like 10,000 times easier. And then we go to the left side, she's gonna destroy that, we drop this. Now ideally you would like to have the stagger bar almost filled after the 3rd destruction of the arena, because you want to stagger her where she comes here so she doesn't do that one last attack, because she will do one last attack, and depending on what that attack is, that might actually kill you. So now after destruction of this arena, she has few options. Number one, she can auto attack you. If she just auto attacks you, you just kill her, GG, nothing else happens. If she does the suck attack, okay, where she like sucks you in, she also spawns ads, and you actually are gonna be in big trouble because she's gonna spawn the fireballs, right, from the ads. Like she's gonna go up, and you're not gonna be able to kill her because of the sucking thing, and then the ads are gonna be shooting fireballs, and you're gonna be in trouble. So that's why you want to potentially stagger her here as well. Then another thing she can do is what she did with me, which is the scream attack. However, I do kill her, so it's just the clone attacking, and you do have to dodge these attacks, so you have to get out of their way, and if you don't get hit, then you don't die. She would still be dead, but you would also be dead. I've seen it's like someone kill Lilith, but he actually died at the same time. So that's basically it. That's this attempt. And that's how you do the stagger strategy. If you have any questions about that, let me know in the comments below. But now let's talk about the legitimate attempts and how to actually kill her if you are not able to stagger her before any mechanics. Okay, so this is an attempt I had with my rapid fire build. I was playing rapid fire with the clone. One thing to note here that I'm using not a lucky hit elixir, but I'm using a heady assault elixir. Very important to shorten your animation by increasing your attack speed. So that is very, very good. You can craft these very easily farmable, and they are super, super strong. Just night and day difference playing with them or without them. The shorter animations make it so that it's much easier to dodge everything. So I'm gonna try to explain now everything you need to know about the fight if you're trying to do it the legitimate way, which is very doable. A lot of people think there's like tons of randomness, especially like in the first phase. First phase is actually extremely predictable. You can learn it, you can learn all of the patterns, and they're like, as soon as you learn them, like it clicks, and then you do it very, very consistently. Another thing I'm using here is conceal, very useful for the unstoppable. I'm gonna mention specific times where I utilize this. So on this build, I don't have that much damage. So what we're doing is we're still using bursting venoms, and we're using the clone, and I am able to get her like below 70% before she starts spawning waves at the beginning. So I'm not going to be able to show you that, but they're the same waves as they are after like the 2 fat demons. So it's going to be basically the same thing. One thing that she's going to do here is going to be spawning the blood boils. With the blood boils, basically what I try to do is I try to evade to the opposite side of her. as the blood boil is, so that I can hit her and then the ricochet flies into the blood boil. Also the blood boils, you can see how they look like now, and they grow over time. You can see how easily this died. That's because I killed it so early, because I was already attacking her and automatically shooting it. At the beginning when the blood boils spawn, they have very, very low HP, and they increase HP as they go, like as they extend their duration, right? So the later, like the longer you wait with killing the blood boil, the harder it is to kill this. So you want to kill them as soon as possible. It's gonna save you a huge amount of time in the fight. So that's why there's this, like, some people think it's inconsistent. No, they basically just increase their HP as they're staying longer and longer. Now she's gonna do the big wave. So the big wave is very, very easy to dodge. Here is how you dodge the big wave. You basically walk through it. You can just basically walk to the other side. If I stand here, I'm safe, right? So she could be even like close to the edge. If you stand roughly here where I have the cursor, this is totally safe, right? You don't want to stand inside of it, because the hitbox for it is more accurate than the small waves, but it's still not like, it's not an Azir ultimate. Like you can stand behind this and you're gonna be pretty safe. You can also just walk to the side. Sometimes she's gonna spawn it like very much in the middle and you're not gonna know where to go, and in that case you want to definitely like be behind her, right? So I just walk behind it and just keep DPSing her, and now she jumps up. When the camera zooms out, she's gonna spawn the demons every single time. If you die when the camera is zoomed out, when you go back into the arena, the fight is gonna start with the camera zoomed out. So you could actually abuse that, die on purpose in this, and then later you have to get used kind of to the inconsistencies of the camera. There's actually so many camera bugs and so many bugs in this fight. It's actually crazy how many bugs there are in this fight. Like that's nuts. There are so many different bugs, but that was one of those things that basically could even help you. There is also another thing where our arena becomes darker. If you log out and come back in, the arena is going to be white again, and everything is going to be much easier to see. So I definitely recommend, the way I did it is I did attempts for like half an hour, and it was because the attempts were fairly long, because either like, you know, if you don't do that much damage and you survive long enough, you're gonna be able to basically not have to repair for the half an hour. And then when you need to repair and you run out of the elixir, you just log out, go back to time, come back out, come back here, and then arena is white. So you never have to fight in the dark arena when you're doing the attempts. In hardcore, it's a little bit more annoying, because you have to like try the elixirs, like put elixirs on again, or fight in the dark arena. But in softcore, you always can have fight. You always can have a fight in the white arena. So now she summons the demons, and you notice that I am immediately DPSing her. I'm like spamming poison, I'm DPSing her down, because I don't need to stand on the bottom. Like people stand on the bottom to try to bait the demons. The demons spawn in a random place. You don't need to do anything to like make them spawn in a specific place or wait for them or whatever. Just start DPSing her immediately when she jumps down. I can do, I have it timed with the rapid fire, so I can do 3 punctures, rapid fire, 3 punctures, rapid fire, and then 1 or 2 punctures, rapid fire. And that's what I can fit in before she summons the demon. So that's usually when I use like poison imbue and stuff. And then after that, you want to go to the side. After spawning the 2 fat demons, the first wave she's going to do is going to be different than every other wave. The first wave is, I don't know if it's bugged or if it's a specific mechanic that's done on purpose, but basically, if you want to dodge it consistently, you dash. You don't evade through it. Every other wave that I'm going to show you after this one, that are like the regular waves, you can just walk to the other side. You can just la 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 la, like it's so slow. You can just walk through it, right? If you position correctly, you can just use evade or 2 or not, as you like. You don't need to dash. But this one, you actually need to dash, or you need to very, very well time it, right? It's possible to do it with evade. It's very, very hard. You have to kind of pre-move it with, if you're doing it with evade, with certain configurations of the wave, depending on which one it is, because there are so many, but it doesn't really matter if you dash. So my rule was to always dash in this spot in the first wave after the 2 fat demons, right? So I'm damaging them. And then you see the wave is spawning here. You can tell I've done this a lot because I see this so quickly, right? At first, when you're gonna do this, you're gonna be like, this shit is impossible to see. I don't see anything. How am I supposed to know like what's going on? This is so crazy. This is so unfair. The more you do it, the more your brain is gonna like start noticing these things, right? So you see this wave spawning, you dash to the other side. Wherever you were, you just dash through the middle to the other side. If you were at the bottom, you dash up. If you were here, you dash here. If you were here, you dash here. You always dash to the other side through this wave. And then she's probably gonna spawn the other middle wave somewhere here. It can be in completely freaking random point here. Normally it's supposed to be like one here and one here, and you're supposed to get behind the second one. But in the first wave after the two fat demons, it's all over the place. So she spawned like one right next to it, right? And the timing on this is also fucked up. So that's why you always want to dash the first one. And then the only thing you pay attention to is, are they hooking you? If they're hooking you, you can use conceal or just move out of the way a little bit. But if you're moving out of the way, you have to pay attention to these waves that are going to come at you from the sides, and just make sure you're in between them. And that's it. And then you just keep DPSing these guys. This appears. And now important thing is, I don't want to walk up here, even though I could walk up timing wise, because I'm going to be body blocked. So there are three things that body block you. The demons body block you, the blood boils body block you, and the invisible Lilith hitbox also body blocks you. Whenever the wave spawns here, the Lilith is gonna drop it, and there's gonna be like an invisible shadow of her that is spawning, and it actually has a hitbox, and it's gonna push you to the side. So you have to be very careful, and you have to evade through this hitbox. You can evade through hitboxes, you can dash through hitboxes, but you cannot walk through them. So this is particularly annoying when you're doing the three demons, and if they're like surrounding you and you're trying to move to the side, sometimes your character is gonna get forced to walk out of the arena. Like you're just gonna click in here, but your character is gonna walk out of the arena because the demon, like fat fucking belly demon, pushes you away. So you have to be careful for the hitboxes. That's why you evade here, evade again, because there was this other blood boil, and that's what evade is most useful for, just going through hitboxes. So I'm killing the other demon, killing this, and again I'm dashing here, because if I'm like hitting the blood boil and I'm not sure if I have enough time, then I just dash, right? But otherwise you can just walk through them. And now after the two fat demons, this is the easiest phase. You can literally like permanently sit in this phase. It's so easy. Every single time it's going to be exact same wave. So you want to make sure that, okay, you kill the blood boil. She's flying up. The moment you see her like kneel down to fly up, run to the edge. Run somewhere to the edge that is on the side or on the bottom. And then she's going to do the exact same pattern. It's going to be one wave in front of you, one wave behind it, and then side waves. And you basically walk to the other side. That's all. And you're gonna be right next to her when she spawns. So she spawns the wave, you just walk through this, and then you can sit literally here where my cursor is. You're completely safe, like basically inside of this hitbox. The hitbox starts like at the bottom half of it. And then she's gonna appear here, so you can already pre-fire your puncture. You can pre-imbue, you can whatever you want, right? So I'm pre-fire and puncture, and I'm hitting her, and then I'm trying to position myself kind of down so that I can be closer to the bottom or the side when she goes up, right? Also, when she dashes outside of the arena, be very careful to not hold down the button without at least holding shift, because your character can walk outside of the arena following her. So here, I'm just using my poison imbue, because I know I'm not gonna have to dash this. These are just, all of these waves are super predictable. It's one simple pattern every single time, unless you fuck up and stand in the middle for some reason. But if you're standing close to the edge, which is roughly like up to here, so like maybe 3 bodies width around the edge, it's gonna be every single time the same thing. Is go to the other side, I pop the clone, and I just start DPSing her. The first time after you kill the two demons, she comes down, she's gonna spawn one blood boil and go very quickly up. And then after that, she's also gonna go down, attack you once, and then go very quickly up. The third time, that's where you wanna pop your cooldowns and do maximum damage, because that's where you have a good chance of her being down for a really long time. She does the wide wave. There is space to stand behind her, but the problem with this is that my dash is gonna push me now probably outside of the arena, and my evade is gonna be too short. So if I was very close to her, I could walk and stand behind her and I would be safe. But because I am at an awkward distance, it's much easier to go down to the safe spot. So I just evade down, go around the wave, no problem. Again, I have to be really careful here to hold shift while I'm attacking her when she's outside of the arena, so my character doesn't walk out of the arena. And we just keep DPSing her, spawning the blood puddles, because I am using the bursting venoms, but of course this is not as much damage as the twisting blades. And again, just walk through the waves. She's gonna spawn here every single time, this exact same pattern. She spawned the blood boil on the other side, so I evade through her, and then I'm shooting through her so that the ricochet hits it, and that way I don't have to like spend extra time attacking blood boil on its own. Again, same thing, exact same pattern every single time, super easy, like very, very predictable. That's the bread and butter of this fight, like super easy to learn. We stagger her because I do have some ability to stagger. It's very important on this fight to have some stagger. I probably should fit more. You can also use like, I saw people use like shadow imbue. I think that's really dumb. I think you want to use cold imbue on this fight. If you want to use another imbuement with the poison on rapid fire, cold imbuement is very useful, and the stagger is going to be very, very helpful. So I would definitely use that instead. Then camera went up. That means she's going to spawn demons. That means she's going to go here and be attackable for a while. So I can use poison imbue and I can just attack her multiple times before she spawns the demons. I don't need to go down and bait them or anything. I do this after she goes up. There's plenty of time. After she goes up, now my strategy here is to kill one demon at a time, and that's what I recommend. Do it calmly, do it slowly in a controlled fashion, kill only one at a time. The easiest way to control like how much damage you're dealing, even if you have like AoE, is I only puncture this one, and only this guy is vulnerable when I start attacking. So you can see how much more damage I did to this guy compared to the guy that the ricochet flew into, because he wasn't vulnerable before the ricochet hit him, right? So I did this, and now we got the first of the new patterns. So there are two new patterns. At the beginning you had the simple pattern, if you bait to the side, like that you walk through. So this pattern still exists here. So that's number one pattern. Number two pattern that's gonna exist is gonna be the triangle, and number three is gonna be the parallel waves that basically can cover the whole arena, that I'm going to explain whenever they show up. So for the triangles, you have two ways of dodging them. If they are off center, like in this case, first of all, you need to get out of the slam as quickly as possible. And then in this case, we have a safe spot. We have two safe spots. We have a safe spot on the top here. So this is a safe spot. And then there's a safe spot in here, because you can see this wave is going to follow the line. It literally shows you the lines, right? So you always know where they're going, and they're always going in a clockwise direction. The other way to dodge them, which you're going to see later, is to follow the waves. So you can dodge, you can go here, and this is a safe spot already, so you don't need to follow the wave. But imagine that this triangle was angled so that the wave was going here. You could follow this wave. So what you do is you go on the left side of a wave, and then you follow it, and that's going to be super easy. You can do this in a very tight area. You can do this in like, you can just dodge, like just get out of it and just dodge. Like you can do so many things in order to dodge the waves very, very easily. So this is going to be basically jump to the safe spot and continue DPSing the demons, getting to kill one of them. So I killed one of them. Again, we got very big safe spot here, super easy. And in this phase, if you don't have to use the dash, don't use the dash. Dash is super important for going to safe spots. Otherwise, just make sure you use evade or just walk, like don't just randomly dash, right? If you don't need to. It's super important cooldown, and you might need it. Here I'm positioning down so that I can see this is just a super regular wave. But it does have a safe spot. I could have gotten to this spot and I would be safe in here, or I can go to the safe spot on the left side, right? Either one is fine. We're continuing killing the blood boils. Again, big safe spot on this side. So that's where we're going. And we're still DPSing the blood boils. I'm popping the cooldown here. I'm popping my shadow so that I can kill these easy. And now we got super simple pattern where we're gonna have to dash to this side, or I can just evade and walk. This is the very basic wave pattern, and you can see I'm standing in it, but I'm completely safe in it. And then after you kill the 3 fat demons, now this is very similar to after killing the 2 demons, but she spawns an extra blood boil, so she spawns 2 instead of 1. And now it's even more important to, like, when she spawns them, what I do is I try to evade through her if I can, unless I know that she's gonna like jump up and I'm gonna be off position, right? Because here I know that she's probably gonna jump up and I would be out of position. So I just kill these, but if I can, I try to focus her and let the ricochets kill it. And then she's gonna have the 3 patterns again, right? So it's gonna be the same 3 patterns of the waves. I try to bait here, I get the regular easy one where I just walk to the other side, and then I just go to the dash around her so that I can kill the Blood Boil with the ricochet. And then we just keep DPSing her and avoiding the same 3 patterns that she's gonna do over and over until we kill her, right? So now this is gonna be, which one? This is a triangle. So this one is where I'm actually gonna follow the wave, because there is a safe spot here. It's a little bit iffy. There's a safe spot here. It's a little bit far away from me. Like, I could dash here, but I have to dash. You can see how this slam has so much space here. So I would potentially get slammed. If I dash and end up here, I can get slammed, and then I have to like evade, and I'm gonna be very close to this wave. So by far the easiest way to solve this one is to just get behind this wave. Just go on the left side and then follow this wave. And that is super easy. And you can do this very, very easily in a situation like this. So that's the other way of dodging the triangle. And we just damage her, keep DPSing. She's gonna spawn. I'm going on the other side. There's like a 270-degree cone, I think, where the ricochet can hit. So not directly backwards, but it can bounce to the side or forward. And so I'm hitting her, and I'm at the same time killing the Blood Boils. So you can see I killed them easily. Now this one is a very, very tricky wave, especially when it appears in the middle. So this is the 3rd pattern, the parallel one. So you can vaguely, hardly see the wave appearing here. So that's the middle one. So it's gonna go here. There's the slam here. First priority, get out of the slam, right? So we gotta dash somewhere to the left. And we have 2 options. In this case, I have a safe spot here. So I'm completely fine doing that. And I know that this one was gonna come from the bottom. So I kinda wanna like keep going up and go to here. The other option, if this was in the middle, let's say this is shifted all a little bit to the left, then what I would do is I would go here. I would go here, and then I would go behind the middle wave. That's what you want to do. Go on the side, on the opposite of the wave. So we know the wave is on the bottom here. We want to go on the opposite of it, on the side, and then we want to follow the middle one, right? In this case, I have the safe spot, but if I was here, I would just follow the middle wave, and I would be completely safe there as well. So that's the second way of dodging that. And sometimes you're going to have to do it because it's going to basically cover the entire arena. Yeah, now we just cheer on Lilith, and then we go to phase 2, which is, I think, for sure the harder one. The beginning of the phase 2 is not that hard. Honestly, you can learn it pretty well. It doesn't require that much crazy dodging. But the second half of the second phase, that's where real, real skill is required, because you have to dodge some crazy shit sometimes in a very, very tight area. So we're doing as much DPS as we can. She spawns the 4 Blood Boils. Depending on where you stand, by the way, that's gonna determine where she spawns them. If you stand like below her, they're gonna be more like one here, one here, one here, one here. If you stand on the left side of her, they're gonna be like this. I find this configuration to be fairly desirable. I like this configuration, but you can play around where you stand at the beginning of this phase and see where she spawns the Blood Bowls. And if you keep that consistent, she's gonna spawn them consistently. So a few words about this. Number 1, when you stagger her, 2 of them are gonna disappear. Number 2, when after most attacks, and you're gonna have to learn when she does it, like after flybys, after the suck attack, after the screaming claw attack, she's gonna do her tail attack where she spawns the Blood Boil. And the ideal thing to do is to stand basically inside another Blood Boil, and that way she's gonna spawn it within the radius of it, and it's gonna destroy the old one. Sometimes if you have 2 close to each other, you can actually make her destroy 2 Blood Boils for spawning 1 new one, right? So you can actually make her reduce the number of Blood Boils, and if you manage to do that and then stagger her afterwards, you can actually clear the area super nicely. But that depends on how well you can manage it, how well you can tank them, and a little bit of RNG, because she spawns them like around you. So if you want to make sure to tank them, here's what you need. You need a lot of poison resistance. I think shadow resistance as well. I think they do both types of the damage, but for sure poison. So rings with poison resistance are pretty important. And then also you need to have a lot of damage reduction and life in general, right? And if you can be fairly tanky, the fight is actually going to be easier in this phase. It's like more so than like the damage, right? You need a balance of both. So just well-geared character is better than just massive damage or just massive tankiness. You definitely want like best of both worlds. So here she's flying from the top. In whichever direction she's flying, that's where you want to go. You want to be in front of her. So if she's flying down, you go down. If she's flying up, you go up. That's where the safe spot is going to be. And then ideally, I would want to stand on this blood boil right now so that because after her flyby, she can spawn a blood boil. So she's going to spawn one where I'm at, roughly. And I'm putting it kind of to the side to make it like easy to manage because this is like a fairly neutral area. You don't need to run through this. And then you see this ignition thing. So I'm gonna go back a little bit to show you because some people are confused about this as well. So right now, this completely safe to stand here. You can stand and DPS her. The black thing is safe. The black thing is safe, and now it's starting to deal damage. When it becomes red, this part is what does the damage, right? So you have to be careful when you're DPSing her from the bottom. Hold shift so that your character doesn't walk up. And that's gonna make sure that you're not like randomly walking into this. And roughly now it's safe. Right now we can walk into this area. And after this, you also might want to stand close. You always want to stand close to a blood boil because she might just randomly decide to spawn one. And so you want to give her the chance to remove the old one. So we're doing damage to her now. She does the scream. She screams. There's like a wave that CCs you a little bit. I press conceal so that I get movement speed and I get unstoppable. And then I run away from her. And then before she attacks, I start turning, right? So now she's going to start attacking. I already started turning. And you want to run in a circle now. By running in a circle, you avoid the attack. And then you want to evade or dash away from this slam that she does. She does like a slam with like a red area. And if you stand inside of this area, you get basically one shot. So you want to stand outside of it. And now you want to stand next to Blood Boil. So I want to be next to Blood Boil. So you see she's spawning a new one and she's removing the old one, right? So this one basically didn't add a new one. She's basically just replaced it. And now we go to her. We have a ton of time to DPS her. At first, the second phase, it seems like there's never a time to DPS her, but the more you do it, the more you're gonna like find little windows of DPSing her and actually realize that there's actually quite a lot of time to DPS her. Like for example, now she's gonna fly up. Oh no, actually she's still flying down because I didn't do enough damage. And you can DPS her here. Like this is completely safe to DPS her, completely safe to DPS her. Now you have to get out of there. And then she's doing the ignition thing. I didn't manage to get her to spawn the blood bowl on top of the other one, so unfortunately added to. We still just do damage to her. Soon we're gonna stagger her. Okay, she's doing the scream. That means it's gonna be the triple claw attack. So you basically go away and then run in a circle, and then after the slam you dash and you move away. And now I'm gonna stand in between these because I want her to spawn the blood bowl, but she decided now she's gonna do a flyby because her health is low enough that she has she's forced to destroy the stage now. So she's gonna be destroying the stage. Whenever she's destroying a stage, blood boils are gonna spawn the fireballs, which are very likely gonna one-shot you unless you're very, very tanky. So what you want to do is you want to hang out in the black area and you want to go into this area very late. So I'm hanging out still while this is black, and now I'm going here from the side. So I'm dodging around. You can walk through the blood bowls, but they are going to do damage to you. It's like poison and shadow, I think. And then also they're spawning the fireballs, so they might like point blank snipe you. So you have to be careful. So I'm dodging in between them. Now this is safe. So I'm going down, and now after this, she's very likely gonna do the suck attack, okay? The suck attack is basically gonna push you toward her. So you can see I pressed conceal, because if she does the suck now, she's gonna push me into a fireball. So I'm gonna be completely fucked. So either you can dash here, and you should be safe, like pre-dash it, or you use conceal, right? For me, I use the conceal, and I'm safe. She doesn't even see me, so she doesn't do the suck attack. And then after that, I should be next to another blood boil because she's gonna spawn one. So that's another thing I missed here. We get to stagger her, removing a couple of blood boils. We do as much DPS as I can. I spawn the shadow, poison imbue, bursting venoms, all of that stuff. I was a little bit too far away from this, so that's another mistake I did. I should have been closer to this so that she has a better chance of replacing the old blood boil instead of spawning a new one. But yeah, I messed that up. And then we have her fly to the left side, and then she's still completely like able to be DPS'd. You want to stand here. Another mistake I'm doing, you can see her, she's doing the tail hit where she's gonna spawn a blood boil, but I should have been much closer to the other one so that she can replace it again, right? So there's so many opportunities to position correctly and stand on top of or very close to other blood boil where you get her to basically replace the old one. Again, screaming attack, so we run away and then in a circle, and then just get away from her hit. This was very weird. I dodged this one, so here I should have died. This was a very, very weird one because she didn't follow it for some reason. Normally she's moving and her shadow is moving, but she got stuck here for some reason and spawned blood boil like away from me randomly. So that was a very weird thing that happened here. There are some like this fight still has a lot of like parts that I don't fully understand, or they are bugged or something. Like she has a mind of her own. Sometimes she's gonna do weird stuff, but most of it is predictable and learnable. Now I am running in between those two so she can replace at least one of them, and she did, just doing damage to her. And now we're gonna get to the actual difficult part of the fight. Okay, this is the sack attack. She sucks you in. You gotta get out of this because she's gonna do a big slam, and then she spawns the ads, which you have to kill. In the beginning, it doesn't matter if you kill them quickly or not, but you definitely want to get rid of them because as we're getting to 50% HP, the real difficult part starts where a few things happen. When she gets to 50% HP, every single time she flies up, not only when she's going to destroy the stage, every single time she flies up, the blood boils are going to shoot fireballs, and also the minions are going to shoot fireballs. So that's very, very difficult. We stagger her. This is really nice because she's going to remove the right side of the arena. And I know that she's going to fly right now to remove the right side of the arena. So I'm positioning myself on the bottom. Because I know that I want to run from the bottom side, like at the last moment, and go away from these fireballs and kite them around. If I go from this side, then I'm gonna have fireballs coming from here and cutting me off. So that's why I'm going from the bottom side here. And in case she spawns a blood boil, I'm gonna be close to them as well. And now here's the tricky part. This part of the arena is actually not safe. You would think that the whole part of the arena that's being destroyed is safe, but it's not. This large part actually is gonna be ignited and you cannot stand in it because you're gonna die. So you have only this section of it to run around, right? So you run around the fireballs, and now I timed it correctly so that I can actually now get out, right? Because this thing was still being ignited even though it was also being destroyed. So we run away from the fireballs. I'm gonna use conceal whenever I can. So I didn't have the cooldown. I probably pressed it, but I didn't have the cooldown. The cooldown just came up now, but she already sucked me in, so it doesn't matter. I'm dashing away. And here's, I think, the mistake I made. I didn't realize that she was below 50% HP. So I didn't realize that now everything is going to spawn fireballs even when she's not destroying the arena. And it's not yet the time for her to destroy the arena. So I didn't expect it, and that's where I died. So that's where my progress ended for this one. But I'm going to explain what happens next. So the next thing that happens is very simple. You get her lower HP by dealing with these fireballs. Just like before, you have to deal with the fireballs, you have to manage the blood boils. The fewer of them you have, the easier, because it's going to limit the points of origin for the fireballs. She's going to destroy this side of the arena, and now you have like a square, right? And in this square, she's going to do the same attacks, and she's going to do also ignite almost the whole arena except for 2 safe spots on either side. So when you see a safe spot, so when you see like a black area spawn on the whole thing except for like at the bottom, you want to run away from the bottom because you're gonna have to have space to kite the fireballs. So what you do is you run, like I saw Ben do this basically in like a figure 8. So you run from the edge, you run diagonally down, you kite the fireballs, you run around, turn back, and then at the last moment you dash back into the arena, right? You dash back into the safe space. And then as she ignites the rest, you walk through the safe space at the edge of it. And then at the last moment, when the ignition ends, you walk back into the arena, right? And then she's gonna do the same thing on the opposite side. So again, you do like a figure 8, you go away, or you dash away from the safe space, you kite as long as you can, and at the last moment, you jump into the safe space, walk through it, and then walk out at the last moment again. So that's something that you're gonna have to do either once or twice, and then you should have enough damage to probably kill her, because you're gonna have some execute damage, presumably like damage to injured enemies, or you're gonna have the smiting aspect, right? That should help you. And then you just kill her. Well, it's easier said than done, because that part is very, very difficult and very tight with dodging the fireballs, but that's basically the whole fight. So hopefully this has been helpful. I think I shared everything I can possibly share about this fight. If you have any other tips, anything you've noticed about the fight that you want to share with other players, you can share it in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.